Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 47. This is our weekly music production, technology, and marketing podcast. Today we're talking all about AI and its place or lack thereof in music making, a new Rhodes plugin that sounds pretty cool, and recent financial woes of Spotify. My name is Sunwarper. We are live. Thank you for joining us if you're tuning in live. And let us know what you've been up to in the chat. Always good to hear from you all. With me today is Eon Lake. How are you?
I'm a bit shaky, really. A bit worried
About
Spotify, but
about Spotify. I think they'll probably be all right if that's your concern, but maybe not. We'll talk about
I'm gonna get through this somehow.
The end of music as we know it, really.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Well, on brighter notes, what have you been up to? Well, hopefully brighter notes.
I've been finishing stuff. Yeah,
Nice.
That's my favorite thing to do. I finished Deep State Volume 3 now. I'm mastering that at the moment.
Nice.
And that will appear any moment. And yeah, fostering new ideas. As soon as I finished it, I thought, I don't think I'm going to do anything like this for a while now. I've got some other ideas that I want to explore. And then I found a way of doing some wave folding on a complex oscillator that sounds like Tibetan throat singing. Oh,
now you got to do it. Yeah,
really
of course.
Syndrome stuff. So I probably will be. But there you go. Yeah, it's nice to finish something. It's nice to move on, and I got lots of ideas. So, I'm kind of happy. I just need time now. It's back to the old thing, time to actually explore it.
Yeah.
And organization to remember the ideas. So I've got some written up on the old whiteboard over there.
I was going to say, the whiteboard should come in handy with the organization.
Yeah. So how about you, man? No, something has changed.
Something, yeah. There's like a tiered structure behind me.
Yeah.
Of some sort.
It's almost quite mountainous, you might say.
It is, yeah. MIDI Mountain is alive and well, and as you can see from the cables, there is some MIDI. It's not fully operational yet, but it is functional. I have all the audio going in. I just have MIDI in and out of the Prophet, but I think what I'm gonna do next, I'm treating this like phases. So next, I want to get some like flat panels or a flat surface with like a lip, so that nothing slides off of them. Put it on each one, and then get a small mixer, the circuit up here. I don't know if you can see from the angle, but the circuit up on the second shelf, and then add all my drum stuff with the mini log up there, and then control the mini log and the MS1 with the circuit, so it can all be MIDI, and then use the Prophet to actually play, and then of course with my MIDI hub that's on my desk, I can send MIDI in and out of Prophet and probably the Erebus.
Apparently your guitars look pissed, according to David in the chat.
They might be. I don't know. I had to move for the time being the stand, so the bass is like not a happy camper there, but it's all right.
You know what basses are like.
They'll manage. I just need to probably move it a little bit, and it'll be fine. But what's going on with the Audionautic co-pilot, Curtis?
All right. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, there you go.
Correct.
Oh no, not this again! Not this existential crisis.
Stuck in a loop now. Yeah.
10 points.
But after the week I've had, I'm not sure whether I'm coming or going, but we'll see.
Bonus points. What have you been up to?
I've, in the name of finishing, we've all been finishing something. I've been finishing off Marooned. We pushed that back up. It was going to go out in January, but it's going to go out in March now. I finished all the artwork, did the stuff for all the CDs. I'm going to do a physical run of that.
Yeah.
And I've started piecing together the pieces for putting it out there, putting it live, like creating the little videos and the reels and the stuff like that, and just creating the aesthetic, that kind of thing. So that's been really nice to kind of go full circle with that, kind of bring it together.
Feels like you've done something, right?
Yeah, it's almost like I've accomplished something with my life. Which, if you look at, because that's the way it is. But it's been interesting. We had a bit of a debate because I use Midjourney for the artwork, and me and Sunwarper were having a bit of a debate. I was also having it with Jay Bell, who's in the chat, about the use of it. 'Cause it's Midjourney and it's AI generated. Is it the right thing to do? That kind of thing. We'll get into AI. We're having a bit of an AI kind of themed show, but yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah. But hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you ever so much for joining us. We've got David, Survey Channel. We've got Hydro Fighter. We've got Shady. We've got Maureen's friend. We've got J-Bell as well. It's lovely to have you here with us. Thank you ever so much. Love to see what you've been up to. Please let us know what you've been up to and where you've been going. And if you like what we're doing, maybe give us a like and a share. Let the people know that we're here and doing stuff. That'd be really cool.
Tickle the algorithm.
Juan actually isn't J-Bell. He's AI, he says.
Oh, well, that would understand a lot.
What is it? It's Chat GP1 or something.
GP1, yeah.
Chat J-Bell T.
Would explain a lot about where Juan gets his musical tastes from.
Oh, savage.
So we'll see. But yes, let us know what you've been up to. This show is also brought to you by our patrons, who a lot of you are actually in the chat as well. Thank you ever so much once again. If you like what we do, our Patreon is in the comments. Give us a pledge if you like what we do. It starts at $2. Really a lot going on.
Yeah, we also have patron chat over on Twitter and on our Discord, and then we do monthly hangouts with the patrons. There are star streams. It's like kind of a podcast, but it's just for them, just us chatting about whatever, anything and everything. So if you want to check it out and get other exclusive content, head to patreon.com/audionautic. I was going to do that audionautic/Patreon thing again, but yeah, patreon.com/audionautic. And David, he said about the guitars looking pissed. Hydro Fighter said he thinks that it's just because the video's backwards, to which I replied, my whole reality's backwards. But the guitars are quite well. I haven't been playing them much because of my wrist, but that's slowly starting to change. I've been getting about 10 minutes, so I got to change all the strings. So they are a little antique with the strings, a little old. But other than that, they're doing quite well.
Fresh off the seabed.
yeah, they're a little rusty. It's been a couple months since I've changed them, so I got to change all those. But other than that, they're doing well. We also have Frequency Control Center in the chat. He says he's a bit late to the party. No, you're right on time, man. Mm-hmm. How's it going?
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, I have had some very interesting discussions with Paul in the Discord a couple of days ago and over the last couple of days. Our Discord's growing, and it's lovely to see, which is very nice. There's always something going on, popping around, which is very good fun. But, Sunwarper, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about a lot. What do you want to start with? Rhodes, AI, or Spotify? I know Eon Lake's really sad about Spotify, so maybe we should give him. Let's give him a minute to grieve. I think with Spotify, and then I think we can cover that.
Yeah, we might be jumping the gun with that one. Let's
give yourself time to grieve, Eon Lake. It's all right.
It's a process, bro. It's an absolute process. Like, you've got to go through the stages. Let's start with as it's the outlier, because we haven't got much gear this week. It is more of a kind of a circumstantial idea. Let's start with the Rhodes, because it's the outlier for the day. I'll bring it up so we can have a look. Yeah, share tab. That's the one. Rhodes have got the V8. They've just released the V8, which is an electric piano, one of the classic. Well, classic. I mean, you think of a Rhodes electric piano, and you think, oh, you know. And there are many, but Rhodes themselves have gone and got their V8 electric piano there. It's basically a lot of samples going on here. 30,000 samples. 30,000 samples. So, I mean, when they say multi-sample, they very much mean multi-sample.
They did it more than once, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought their description of, quote, faithful, deeply sampled and modeled recreation was just PR speak, but 30,000 samples with 100 velocity layers, maybe that's not just PR speak.
I suppose that's over a few different patches, though, isn't it? A few different sounds and whatnot. But
probably.
So, yeah, just to be fair, they've put the effort in, haven't they?
Seems like it. Maybe we should hear out sounds though before we give that judgment.
That's true. Draw anything positive I said.
You better.
So yeah, we go through here. Let's have a listen. It's quite interesting what you can do with it.
Modeled directly from the acclaimed. Add some drive and things warm up even more.
leave it there for now, because I mean, it's not like the Behringer 800 Pro, which has got many different presets.
Pro 800.
Pro 800, sorry, yes, Pro 800. But it brings up an interesting point, because the plugin itself is $149.95 for the Rhodes piano itself, or a Pro version at $249. Which is quite a price tag.
What's the difference between them as well? That's what I'm wondering.
It sounds like they don't exactly say. It says, unfortunately, details appear to be missing. Chat, if anybody knows and we're wrong, let us know. But I'm just reading off what Curtis has provided here. But I mean, Rhodes are Rhodes. It sounds good. I'd be curious, though, with that price tag, what about it competes with a lot of other Rhodes sounding VSTs and plugins? And there's a lot of even stock ones that sound really good. And it seems like the plugin is similar to the real Rhodes. Like Juan says, I want that Rhodes, but that's too expensive. Yeah, and like the real Rhodes are pretty pricey too. So it's like, is it just the name that's giving it that price? That's what I'm wondering.
It's the sort of price that makes you look at what you've already got and think, is that good enough? So, isn't it?
I mean, I get a lot of my Rhodes sounds from the stock E-piano or something from Logic. You know, you add tape Mellowfi or something and you're good to go.
I mean, Rhodes is a real enigma. It's a bit of a one-trick pony, but at the same time, it's a strangely versatile sound as well.
Yep.
Considering it doesn't actually change that much itself, it fits into a lot of different genres quite well.
Yeah.
It can sound quite chill and trippy and spaced out sometimes, as well as funky. But yeah, I don't know. I think about the lower price. The upper price is that.
Yeah, we'll try to find out what the difference between the normal and the pro is, because that may make some difference. Like, it's good to know what that is. But
100 extra patches.
Yeah, I wonder. It is
40,000.
All of them.
The one thing I would say, given the price, I mean, it sounds like it's very meticulously sampled.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of intricacies to it. So if like the Rhodes is the sound you want, this may be the way to go, because you want all that intricacies and the different velocity layers and things like that. And so maybe that's where the price comes into play. I guess it just really depends. Like, are you using the Rhodes as a tool or your main type of sound, you know?
And maybe that's their intention, right? I mean, it's their legacy. So they've got to make the landmark version, you know, even if it is expensive, the absolute, can't argue with, hands down, best version should come from them. If they've got, you know, pride in the product, good for them, even if I don't buy it.
Curtis, before we get your take, just in the chat, Frequency Control Center says it's a lot for a VST with one-ish sound. Yeah, definitely. He also says when the actual hardware version is 9K, it doesn't seem like that bad of a price. Yeah, definitely. And Juan also says, I feel like once you have an electric piano VST that you like, you don't really need more. And that's kind of echoes my sentiment. Like, I'm not sure it has a place, unless, like I was saying, like if the Rhodes is what you want or something, or you're the main focus of your sound, maybe it's the way to go. But what do you think, Curtis? You brought it to the table, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it.
I lean towards what you guys are saying. In a similar vein to Juan, I have an electric piano. I think I actually have J-Bell's electric piano, and I don't feel the need to have anything more. But I suppose, again, it comes at where you're kind of edging your market. Are you creating a passion project, or are you doing commissions for paid work? Because if you're doing a passion project, an electric piano could just be an electric piano. Excuse me. But if you are looking for commissioned work and you're looking to like bump up the price of your commissions, you can say, well, you know, I'm using actual kind of synthesized versions of, you know, the classics. You know, it's like having an MS-20 EST or something like that. You know, you've got that kind of hardware behind it, which if you are an audiophile and you are reaching out for someone to make something for you, you're going to appreciate that a lot more, I feel. Oh, hello, Steve.
I was like, I think Steve wants to say something. He's been chiming in quite a bit.
He has been. He's been quite rowdy today. I've not been in the house much this week.
He
Anyway,
completely agrees. I was calling bullshit.
Yeah,
I
he
think
pointed to the monologue, so maybe he's saying, stick with synthesizers.
exactly. I think that's kind of what we're saying. So yeah, I think 149. What the guys are saying in the comments is a lot for, like I say, it's a lot for what it is. If you're doing commission work and you're working it, maybe it's something you want to have a look at. Otherwise, maybe not. But it's interesting to see where you're at. It's like we had a look at the Strymon VST, which was again a lot for what it is. But
I was just thinking about that too, the Strymon. I was like, this is still cheaper than the Strymon, and it's an actual instrument.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's. I wanted to bring it to attention just to kind of see what you can do. It's nice to see where these things come through. And 30k samples—that's a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, we do a lot of multi-sample VSTs, but that's a lot of multi-sample.
When it comes to virtual modeling an instrument, this is probably, right up there, about as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's part of your sound, if you play, a form of music and that's your hallmark, then maybe you want the best.
And it's from the source.
It is.
So if if that's what you want, that's what I'm saying. Like, if that's the sound you want, it makes sense to maybe go that way. I would be curious to hear either in the chat or if you're watching this back after it airs, either on Spotify or iTunes, or I'm sorry, Apple Podcasts, or here on YouTube. If you think differently, or if this is something you really want to grab, let us know why. I'd be very curious to hear, like, kind of the counterpoints to what we're saying, because I think it's really cool. I'm just not sure the price and things like that makes sense for me, but I'd be curious to hear someone who actually is like, this is my jam, I want that.
I think I'd still rather spend 149.95 on the Rhodes V8 than I would get and have the Waves 88 for 50. Because
I have that Waves because it came in a bundle I got, and I used the Logic one instead. So
yeah, I had it for a while. I tried to transfer it from my old laptop to my new, and it just won't let me. So I'm like,
that's the Wave special.
Exactly. So I'm just not going to bother with that anymore.
That Eon Lake eye roll says it all. I think we need to zoom that in for a clip, and just anytime Waves or something is mentioned, Waves update path, just insert that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yes, that's our one bit of gear for this week. And yeah, so there's that one. Eon Lake, you call the next one. We've got Rick Rubin or we've got Spotify.
I don't know if I can handle not knowing if Spotify or
He's past the grieving. You're getting to the acceptance.
Get to the acceptance side, yeah. Get to the acceptance
I just want to know it's going to be okay,
all right.
Everything's going to be all right.
We all know how much you love Spotify, Eon Lake, so I'll bring this up.
I don't want anything bad to happen to them.
Sunwarper brought this to the table. Spotify, from CNN Business, Spotify is to cut 6% of its workforce. Take us through this one, Sunwarper.
Yeah, so this is terrible for anyone that's losing their job, but we're when we're talking about the jokes and stuff, it's more, we always talk about Spotify and whether it's sustainable and things like that, and it's more that whole thing. But for anybody losing their job, it's terrible. But yeah, they're laying off 6%, which, according to the CNN article, is about 590 jobs. And this is actually happening all over the tech space right now. Google laid off people. Microsoft laid off a bunch of people. So it's possible, it's probably connected to the economics and things like that. But for Spotify, there's some interesting bits in this article that I wanted to talk about. So it says, from the article, CNN says, Spotify's decision to shed about 590 jobs as part of a wider reorganization to improve efficiency and, quote, speed up decision-making, end quote, according to Eck, who I believe is the CEO. As part of the changes, engineering and product work will be centralized. Chief Content Officer Don Ostroff had also decided to leave the company. And then this is the big part. Spotify reported a loss of $248 million in its most recent financial quarter through September 30th, as operating expenses shot up by 65%. So I wanted to get your guys' take on this, but I also wanted to ask the chat and you guys, is Spotify and streaming in general sustainable given some of this? This is just Spotify. It's not Apple Music, not things like that, but I'm curious to hear everyone's take. And then if it's not, if you think it's not, can we go back to music purchasing, or does a rise in piracy occur like it did when everything was about purchasing? I just want to hear your take. I don't, Eon, like you have a bit of an interesting, because we've talked about this before. So do you want to start?
Well, I'd be interested. I really would be interested to know what their rising costs are. I mean, energy's got to be part of it, right? I mean, I don't know how things are in the States, but in Europe and particularly the UK, energy is extremely expensive, gone up silly amounts. So yeah, I wonder how much of it is to do with rising costs like energy, and also the fact that, you know, such a ton of stuff is going onto the platform. As we've discussed before, that, you know, data center costs must be huge. Now, I don't know how they do their data centers, whether it's infrastructure as a service or something like that, where it's someone else's tin, someone else's operating system, and they're just dumping data on it and their own, you know, their own applications and whatnot. In which case, it'd be even more expensive because, well, either way, you've got to pay for that underlying infrastructure. You've got to pay for the hardware, the cooling, the power, you know, backups, generators, all of that stuff. It's really expensive. You know, that's why a lot of people don't want to run their own data centers now, and they want to, you know, have a bit of someone else's and not have the bother. So it's all very expensive. And this attitude that we have that absolutely everything can just go on it is, I don't know. I mean, at some point, it's going to stop being cost effective, perhaps. Are they getting to that stage now where it's just not cost effective? I mean, yeah. So many questions really about what could be driving this and where it could be going. And, you know, does that mean they need to start gatekeeping content to try and limit the amount of storage that they need for all of this? I don't know.
I mean, I suppose that's if energy is the issue, right?
Well, yeah. I mean it's probably a number of different factors, to be fair, but I don't see any of the kind of costs that they have coming down.
Yeah, and I may be wrong, but I remember reading a long time ago that Spotify had never turned a profit, and it was just through angel investments that it kept going. People saw the promise and things like that. And I mean, I think it was Ben Jordan made a video recently about whether Spotify was sustainable, and he was saying like the low cost, you know, the monthly cost is low, and they try to keep it low to incentivize people to join, but it's like at some point that price probably has to go up to compensate for all of these losses and the investors starting to back off or things like that. And Frequency Control Center in the chat says their model is screwed anyway. It's all about just paying the investors, and lots of artists are leaving. So yeah, it's interesting. It's just, I mean, you look at what listeners of music, like common consumers are using, and it's streaming. So it's like, what if this fails, not just Spotify but streaming in general, like what's the alternative? What happens, you know? Yeah, and like I know you have an idea, like a thought, so I'd love to hear that.
Before I get onto this, Frequency Control Center is also saying that, you know, maybe when times get hard, people cut things like music and subscriptions and things like that. So despite their efforts to keep the subscription costs down, people might still see it as the first thing to go when they need to save a bit of money. But yeah, I don't know. When you look at what it actually is, I mean, you think about getting all of that content that already exists, obviously, somewhere, and dragging it all into one place so that you can gatekeep access to it. It just seems to me a little bit like, to use an analogy, I think the rush hour is a bit of a thing, right? Where this old thing where you have people at their homes and they have to be moved to their jobs, and then they have to be moved back to their homes again. So twice a day, we move all the people around, and then we move them all back again. And we get, you know, gridlock and all the rest of it, and all that commute hassle and so on. It seems a little bit old-fashioned, and I see a future one day where people don't move to work. They, you know, they do it in the same place, or they teleport immediately, or whatever. But this moving people around thing seems a bit outdated. And I think Spotify is beginning to, in my head, see it a little bit that way, where you've got to get all of that information, dump it in one massive data center. It's loads of them all over the place, but you know, pull it all together to give access to it. It's like, why not just leave it where it is and have an application that links all of this stuff together? That's what the internet is for, right? To join multiple systems together. So surely there's a way of like streaming from, so to decentralize it. So it's not all in one place and not all under one company's cost.
Yeah.
If it was like labels or something like that had their own storage, so they store all their artists and you stream from them. And there's a common interface or something that pulls it all together. But I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say one issue that comes up with something like that is just like what's happening with streaming services for movies and things like that. It's all separate, and so you have to pay all these different monthly fees and then or monthly rates, and then you're actually paying more than what cable probably was like 20 years ago or something.
Exactly.
So it's like, was it worth it? I mean. It's apples and oranges, and I get that. I'm just saying, like, if we do something where it's like up to each label to host it and things like that, and then of course it screws over people like us, the independent musicians, because we don't have the budgets probably to host and create this like hosting platform and thing like that. I get what you're saying though, if it's a centralized like hub, but with these different servers, but it's still like we'd have to pay for the server.
If you had your little storage and you could sign up to this, you host it yourself. On your internet connection, and people can just stream it, something of that type, maybe. But maybe the answer is just looking at independent things and assessing their value themselves, and saying, do I want to pay for that album? At least back in the day it was a thing, once you start bundling it together, you get competition. Can somebody actually pull all those things together cheap enough for everybody to buy, in which case there's probably an opportunity to make a lot of money. But nobody's managed it yet, really, have they, as you say?
Yeah. Curtis, what about you? What do you think?
Along the same lines, in a way. I mean, I'd like the idea of like hosting everything on my website, and so you can access my catalog through my website directly through me, which that's my server space, and then I don't know, pay a subscription to people who put my stuff out, like an RSS feed for my work, that kind of thing. That would be a good way to go. I think I'd be a lot more comfortable with that, because then you got instances of incorporating purchases and physical releases and stuff like that, and kind of the branding and the hub, which is a lot. It's decentralized, but it's centralized. It's all around me and based around me, that kind of thing. So that would be a nice way to go. To answer, I don't really have much to add to what Eon has said, but the idea of going back, if this was to collapse, piracy will just come back, surely, because these platforms were set up to combat piracy. They weren't. They
probably both. They want your data, so
but they weren't set up to to give us more stuff. They were set up so that they take at least some money from us, so we don't get it for free. Which is okay, fine. It is what it is. But I mean, you're not going to go back to people buying everything. You're going to people are going to find it on YouTube and download it.
Yeah.
See,
and that's always my issue with like you saying the dream is that decentralized. You have a hub where people buy your music, and there's like an RSS feed where it's going out and things like that. That's great, but it's like Pandora's box was already opened with streaming.
Yeah.
And there are the people like those awesome fans and followers who go to Bandcamp and buy everything or things like that. And that would be the same. You'd get that percentage of people that would buy from your thing. But it's like, I don't know if you could get the general consumer who uses a streaming platform to start buying. I mean, I don't have the money to buy a gazillion albums, but I could support in a small way, which is better than piracy, in my opinion. And someone may disagree, but it's just a thought. Bendu says hello in the chat. How you doing, Bendu?
Hey Ben, nice to see you.
It's a heavy talk, but how do you feel about all the streaming stuff? I know you don't have your music on streaming, right? I think so. Be curious to hear your take.
Just for a sense of balance, I just listened to Bendu's EP ahead of his album release on Bandcamp. I went back to that for the first time this year in 2023. That's a blinder. So yeah, I mean, there are other ways that are available. I mean, it would be nice to see it come through in that way. But you're right. It's we're going to devolve back into piracy in that sense.
Well, from a certain point of view, there's no going back, and there's a significant percentage of the market now has never known anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Because young people listen to a lot of music from quite a young age now, and then they certainly don't remember anything pre-streaming. You try and sell it to them now, they'll be like, "What?"
Well, it's not going to happen. I think really, like what we're missing systematically is this notion of kind of like independentness or independent patronage, like they had during the Renaissance period, where artists and whatnot, they had patrons who would pay them a monthly dividend to live and exist.
Yeah.
Because they believed in the work that they do. Like, I mean, that's what Patreon is, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what our patrons do, and that's what people do. And if you have like super chats, if you've unlocked that stuff on YouTube and stuff where people donate, and that is the modern patronage system. And like that comes into a whole kind of understanding of personal branding and stuff. And it's nice in that fact, because you're coming back towards that kind of, the branding is me, I'm in control of it, and I'm the artist, and I make my way in this world, as opposed to I make the product or I make the art and then I send it out into the oblivion and just see who picks it up. You know what I mean? It might be it might force us as independent musicians to think harder about kind of personal branding and where we sit and what our place in the world is.
More social media presence, right? That's what the branding, all that stuff. I guess what I'm very curious about is it's just like, if you look at the history of probably anything, but especially music and the commodification of music, there's always something, and then something replaces it. Like you go vinyl to, I guess, cassette. Like you could probably correct me on that. Cassette to CD, CD to iTunes, and then there was that Napster, all that stuff. Like the answer to Napster was iTunes, and then the answer, instead of buying stuff and to combat piracy, is streaming. Like, I'm very curious what's the replacement, because nothing lasts forever, as history would indicate. So like, what comes to replace?
Apart
like
from taxes.
Well, yeah, yeah, like death and taxes, I guess. But
as digital files and iPod happened, because people used to love carrying music around with them, and then you had digital files, and suddenly you can take half your entire library around with you on a small device.
And now it's all on a server, right?
Anyway, that's, people still want that.
Yeah. Well, in the chat, Frequency Control Center says, my boy is 14 and asking Alexa to play any music he wants. That's all he's known. I showed him my previous album on cassette, and he asked what it was. Yeah. And then Maureen's friend, Napster, coming to a blockchain near you. Yeah, I remember Napster said they were back or something. Are they now going into crypto or something like that? Is that like the blockchain? They're doing that?
That's what
Shady says go back to physicals. Yeah, I mean, there's people that like physicals. I just find it hard to believe that people who, like Frequency Control Center was saying with his son, it's like, if that's all they've known, I find it hard that someone would go to this very selective, like, I'll buy this one album. I mean, I remember doing it. It was cool because it made that album special. Like, I remember having to make decisions at, like, what was it, Sam Goody or something, like, this CD or this CD? Which one do I get? And I was like, Dad, help me out. Like, I don't know which one to buy. And he's like, just get this one. He just wanted to leave,
I think that's important. I think, because like you say, like, we have a very throwaway culture when it comes to music these days. To speak very broadly, we have a very throwaway culture. Discover Weekly, Release Radar. It's all about the latest releases, and then it's gone. But if you go and my opinion about money, but when you put money behind a product, and you go and buy a CD or you go buy a cassette, that's yours, and you have it, and you invested in it, not just with your soul, but with actual labor, kind of, to take the John Lockean approach to it, I suppose. The idea of, you've put physical labor behind it and it's yours and you're going to keep that, like, I think there's something there. And, so Frequency Control's 14-year-old boy is only known Elector. But I mean, it doesn't mean, when I was a kid, I used to download all my stuff through LimeWire, and occasionally I would buy something. And now I have Spotify. Things change, things move, and kind of move through it.
But I'm just saying, it's like, I don't see how you can go back when all this is available to you, and then it's like switching something, like you were just saying, you would buy a CD, but you use LimeWire. Now you use Spotify, so you were still getting access to a ton of music. You were just purchasing something special to you, and that maybe is the way to go. I mean, that's kind of what Bandcamp versus Spotify is now, right? It's that same kind of thing. You get the instant gratification with Spotify, and then you can like support more. It's just interesting. I mean, I'm not for or against or anything like that. It's just like, there's so many points and counterpoints. I just like hearing where everybody stands with it. And then Shady also says Columbia House 10 CDs for 1 penny. I don't know how they make that work.
Well, I think, I mean, J Bell, I don't know if he's still in the chat or anything. He's just released, or he's in the process of releasing his LP, Black and Blue, and before he's done pre-release or anything, he just emailed people. He just emailed his friends. He just put something out on Instagram and said, if you want a copy of the album, hit me up. And then they just bank transferred him a bit of cash, and then he sent it to them in a zip file. And that's kind of, it's a digital purchase, obviously, going through the website. Like, that's that very personal kind of independent kind of push forward. And just, I suppose, as a caveat to that, it's just instead of, there is a way back, if you want to call it going back to that kind of way of working. I think it's interesting.
I guess the question is that, like, would that be enough to make it sustainable for the artist? Because, like, even with physicals, you've got to house all the physicals if you're buying in bulk, and then the people who buy it have to want to have that physical presence, which is not something we're used to now, right? So yeah. I love physicals. I sell physicals. I make physicals and all that stuff. It's just like, I struggle to see that it can shift that way completely,
Well, I mean, frequency control. I read that Warner Bros. Are working on a new digital music service. Maybe they have a better way forward.
I wouldn't trust anything with Warner Brothers at the moment. They're in, like, chaos. So.
Well, this is true, but at the same time, anything new moving forward has to compete with Spotify, who's the behemoth in this. And they have to come. I mean, they're pretty big. They might be in a bit of a mess, but they're pretty big. I mean, the idea of creating something new, it's not always about the platform itself. It's how intuitive it is, what you can do with it, directness, that kind of thing. So, always interesting.
Random side note, but did you guys see that Sony just announced a new hi-fi Walkman?
No, I haven't.
It's just a dedicated music player with, like, the ad had all these, like, this chip gives this type of sound and this and that, and it has some sort of AI upscaling for, like, low bit music or something like that too. It was pretty crazy, but I'm like, it's super expensive. It's like, who would buy a dedicated music player? But I guess there's a market. There's a market.
But ever since the iPhone, the tendency has been to converge technologies onto a single platform. So one thing does everything: play games, watch TV, listen to music, browse the internet, everything. Throw all your other stuff away. It tends to be the general direction of travel, doesn't it?
Yeah. Over in the chat, I don't think he's quite done. I probably should have waited, but Maureen's friend said, as a fan, I have two very distinct experiences while consuming music these days. One, a dedicated and set aside time and space where I physically sit down to enjoy something physical, like vinyl tape, very deliberate. And then two, I'm going to assume is something like listening on a phone for driving or working or something, but we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, if people don't want to tune in to see the rest of the show, at least we can tune in to see what Maureen's friend has to say. So maybe just hold on.
We're keeping you invested. Hydrofighter says he lived on his Sony Walkman when he was in grade school. I Googled it because I was curious when I saw this ad. They've been making Walkmans this whole time. They're like digital ones now. That it's like one of those iPods.
Okay.
But it's apparently there's a market for it. Pretty crazy. And Maureen's friend said, yeah, spot on. Oh, you can still write it out if you want.
Soundtracking something.
I want to hear it from your voice. I was just assuming, because that's like how I'm the same way as you, Maureen's friend. Like, I have my vinyls and my CDs for when I want to really just, like, sit and be with an album, right? Like, listen to an album in full. But I also love playlists. Like, if I'm working out or if I'm driving, I want a dynamic change-up of music, not just, like, one artist. Yeah. If you're walking, though, be aware of your surroundings.
Don't walk off a cliff because it's
you can get into music, at least if
maybe
you're like me.
So cliff might be a good idea.
Seems to walk off a cliff. I got a name for my next playlist now, anyway.
Oh, there's okay. Sorry, Maureen's friend, I missed that. He put hit number 2. So he said soundtracking something I'm doing. There we go. Yeah. So digital access to any type of music that fits the moment. He says needs digital access. So yeah.
Same here.
Yeah, I'm right with you. And that's like what I was saying about that if we like went to that whole physical or something like that, it's like that soundtracking bit is still my like hang up on that whole idea.
Well, I'm the same. I rarely listen to music in the house. I'm always on the move. It's like if I'm commuting or if I'm going to the shops or if I'm going for a walk. It's
Walkman,
usually
bro.
That's the case. Get a Walkman.
I'd mute without music. That would
I'd hear all that ringing from tinnitus, so
gotta have you got to drown out that ringing. Genuinely, it genuinely
it's the voices.
It woke me up the other night, and I'm like, okay.
The ringing? Oh man, that's
the ringing.
Rough.
Maybe it's just time to dial it down.
This is random, but have you tried like white noise while you sleep or something?
No, but I can get that well.
Because it blocks out the ring, right? Like I have this giant fan thing. It's not a fan; it's like a swamp cooler, but I don't use it to shoot the water out. It's just you probably don't know what that is, but it's just like this giant pseudo air conditioner thing. But you put water in it, and then
to buy you, just like going down.
Not quite, but it gets humid. So, but anyways, you can have it set to the fan mode instead, and it just is really loud white noise. So I'm like, oh, perfect.
Fair enough. We'll work with it. Frequency control center. It's an age thing. Anyone under 25 these days is purely digital. Us oldies have a past. We're reliving full of vinyl and tape. I mean, vinyl is still, I suppose, vinyl's
had a massive resurgence.
Yeah, and people are buying it. It's coming through. It's just about convenience. It's there. Take the product away. Take Spotify away. Take iTunes away or Apple Music away.
Yeah.
People will find another way, and that will most likely either be going offline with an iPod or something along those lines. I say that it's not going to be the case. And it's on the internet now.
Well, yeah, I think Pandora's box is open, like I said, but I think something will come, and I'm just very curious to see what it is. It might be something like Eon Lake is saying. It might be something else. But yeah, I mean, the internet is there, and I don't think you could just stop. Like, Spotify has its merits in terms of streaming, like its access to music and finding it. And then Bandcamp has its merits for truly supporting. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just very curious to see what comes next. That's like, I feel like we're kind of getting to that apex where it's like Spotify is on the downward and streaming seems to be like on the downward. There's a lot of financial issues with it. So something has to come and replace it, or should, if history is any indication. So I just want to see. And really quick, sorry, Eon Lake, but Survey Channel says recording tapes from early day MP3s for the bus ride. That's the stuff.
Exactly.
What were you going to say, Eon Lake? And then we should probably move on.
I was going to say, I wonder what Rick Rubin would think about.
Oh, there you go.
He'd probably tell you about his new book.
He would. He would definitely. That'd be the first thing out of his bloody mouth. I got a new book out. We'll switch to that. This is our final piece of news. We've been on for nearly an hour and we haven't left the news, but that's not necessarily a bad thing in this case. Rick Rubin, we're not going to talk about his stuff. We just want to talk about what he said, literally just his soundbite. He has absolutely no technical ability, and I know nothing about music. Rick Rubin, the legendary record producer who's worked with the likes of Slayer, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Name more, please.
Isn't he?
I don't know.
Others. Black Sabbath, Beastie Boys,
there you go.
Eminem. And the founder of Def Jam Records.
Yeah.
Founder of Def Jam Records.
Yeah, I think it said he was also a co-president of another record label.
Something like that. Yeah,
Columbia.
Columbia.
Yeah, there we go. Small independent record label.
So yeah, this is. I wanted to bring this as more like a public service announcement than anything else. The idea that this a very well-established, fantastic guy, who openly admits to knowing nothing, and not in the sense of like the Ram Dass knowing nothing, just in the sense that he has no technical ability. The Socratic. He knows nothing about music, and yet he is incredibly successful in what he does. And this is not unheard of, obviously. I mean, if you look at most grunge and punk, I mean, it's kind of similar in that regard. But like the idea that, someone famed for getting by and doing what they're doing, but having absolutely no technical, formal musical training in what they do. I wanted to bring it to you guys and just kind of see what your thoughts are, and the people in the chat. This idea of breaking down those barriers to music production, creative expression, artistic integrity, that kind of idea that, make it sound good, dude.
Yeah, he did that.
He did do that.
I can think of several times.
I don't know. I wanted to see what you say. Like the idea that we, again, especially with the personal branding and now musicians being very entrepreneurial, we have to be. We have to do a bit of everything. You know, Sunwarper hit me up this afternoon and say, "I've just got to create a creative cloud license." It's like, yeah, you know, you got to do all the Photoshop and you got to do all the Premiere Pro, that kind of thing. And there's such a caveat to doing what we're doing. It's a lot daunting. I talk about Spotify, like a lot of the stuff that is uploaded to Spotify, a lot of artists never release more than 10 tracks because there's so much of it and there's so much to do that it seems very externalized. It's not picking up and therefore my art is not very good. You know where I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Sunwarper?
Yeah, I mean, well, two things. I don't think you need to know that stuff. There's something to be said about just playing from your soul, right? From the heart. And I think innately a lot of exposure to music and things will just subconsciously give you the ideas like, oh yeah, this sounds good together. And I don't think you have to know like music theory or something like that. And I like knowing music theory and learning it because I think it's cool and I enjoy learning about it, but I also like to know the parameters so I can work outside of them. You know, and just like, I also just like the nerdiness of being like, oh, that worked because it's this chord in like relationship, you know, or interval relationship or something like that. So I enjoy it, but I don't think it's necessary. And like, I don't think Kurt Cobain had any training, but he had, like, I was watching a Rick Beato talking about a Nirvana song and he was dissecting it with his music theory knowledge and saying like, these are all these interesting things he's doing. So it's there innately, I think.
Copy killing joke.
Yeah, that too, I guess. Maybe that's what it is. But that's the thing. Imitation, copy, like it's all... What's that saying about great artists? That great artists steal or something, right? What's that? There's that one saying about... It's like...
Plagiarism versus... I'm
blanking, but I just think it's not necessary. Also, though, he's a producer, right? And he's working with incredible artists who... probably do know what they're doing. So it also depends on the context of like what you're doing in relation to something. So
I mean, yes. I mean, a frequency control synthesis is the ramblings of an aging hippie. And I think that's a very accurate. I mean, I think it's a very accurate way of looking at it. The idea of, do you mind? I'm in the chat. Thank you. The idea of, you know, he works a lot with like self-development and meditation, inward focus and stuff like that. And he's got he says it in the interview in 60 Minutes. He says, I'm just paid because I am very decisive.
Really quick, sorry. Frequency Control Center said, good artists borrow, great artists steal. That's exactly what I was trying to say and completely blanked.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
There you go. Very much so. But yeah, so like this, having the decisiveness and the confidence in the self and know that your artistic integrity is worth something and is down and is just as valid as anyone else's, no matter whether you've got 10 followers or 10 followers on Spotify or 10,000. You know, it's every artistic expression is kind of valid in its own way. And I think it's people like Rick Rubin, as you say, as Bendu says, I don't know if it's still possible to make a career out of how he's done it, but it's people like that kind of bring that back down to earth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ian, like, what do you think?
I would love to know how I might have to read this book because I'd love to know how he actually got his break. I know all the people that he worked with and so on, and there have been a lot of people in the music business who said, you know, I may not know that much, but I know something good when I hear it, you know, and maybe it is a certain amount of I've got 2 ears, I use them, and I can tell when somebody's good and they've got something to say, and that's not necessarily the same as being a musician or anything. I don't know, but yeah, I'd love to know how he actually managed to break through and start working with the kind of quality that he did, because, you know, a certain part of me thinks we can't really go wrong to some extent. It's about taking people who've got something to say, who can play well, get them to do their thing and capture it, make the best version of them doing that you can, and just try and bring out what's already there. There's a certain element of production anyway. So yeah, I don't know. Do you need to be a musician? Just different ways of doing it, I guess. And he's just proven the fact that you don't have to be. if you have other skills, maybe.
Yeah, and I will say he's been on a ton of podcasts recently. So if you listen to probably any podcast, you've seen his name pop up on one of the newest episodes. I would recommend checking at least one of them out. I found it pretty interesting, just like what he was talking about and the way he approaches everything. And over in the chat, Maureen's friend says, side note, we need an Audionautic Discord channel dedicated to studio cats. That seems a little exclusive, maybe studio pets. I think we could. I don't have a cat, I have a dog. But he's adorable, so I mean, I always share him on Instagram. I think it's fair to have any. If you have a snake, hey, go for it.
I get on board with that. I can make it happen. We'll make it, studio pets or something along those lines. I'll find something alliterative. Something like that.
Bendy says he started Def Jam in high school.
Ooh,
wow.
Okay. I mean, why study when you can just make a record label? Isn't that what we did essentially? That's cool. Well, there we go. Yeah.
Start young, maybe that's the advice.
Start young. Okay. I bet.
No, I don't like ending on that dour note. No. No way.
Why did you not start young? I did.
I don't think you have to start. I think you can start whenever. We all start and do things at different phases, and it's just this is what I was gonna say. What Survey Channel said, it's probably the connections he made. He said, seems he was a master networker and someone that has the social and natural intelligence to see the forest for the trees. Starting Def Jam and being a part of the punk scene. Hydro Fighter. I'm not convinced P Diddy knows much about music either. Hey, that's your opinion.
But that's the thing. I mean, production, when you're working with bands and so on, a lot of it is people skills, right?
Yeah. Networking, connections,
and
all that.
Being diplomatic, being likable, just getting on with people, creating the vibe, getting the job done. And he seems pretty good at doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think it works. Being extroverted and people friendly and stuff like that. Maybe it's just me being the introverted little synth nerd that I am that likes to stay inside and not talk to people unless they're on the screen. The idea of going out and networking with people is probably why I'm still only got 130 crowns in the bank. But that's what they can make it work, We'd like
better
to know
than
what you
120.
Yes, it's fair. Exactly. I'm being grateful. Being full of gratitude.
You're right when the Spotify royalties come in, man.
I can't wait. I just need to hit up DistroKid.
Oh, that is one thing I wanted to mention, though, is I'm very curious to see also on the Spotify topic whether the payouts go down even further. Because they've gone down.
They would.
The chart shows it's gone down and down. So it's like instead of raising rates for the consumer, the listeners, they devalue the art to try to make the cost work.
In both feet by creating such a throwaway, undervalued product and selling it cheap. And
that's a dour note we can stay on, though. So let's move on to AI. Speaking of dour dystopic notes.
No, well, that's kind of the round robin. But the marketing first.
That's true. We'll do the marketing minute first. This is a quick one. As you know, or most of you know if you've been watching recently, I have been trying to find different ways of using social media more as a tool rather than like going on it. And, so one thing I thought was interesting, and we talked about this, I think in I almost said Spotify, an Instagram leak a couple weeks ago, is scheduled reels. You can now schedule reels. It was so annoying. You could schedule posts, but you couldn't. I think you could even schedule stories, but you couldn't schedule reels. So it's really easy to do. I sent Curtis some pictures. He'll share the screen to show you. So if you're like me and trying to be off Instagram more but still want to have a presence, this is a really cool way to do it. So the first thing is when you're making the reel, once you're in that final section where you can write the description, which is at the top, but it's so see the right caption. So that's where you can choose the cover, write the caption. You'll see my terrible finger highlighted advanced settings at the bottom. I did this 2 minutes before we went live. I was rushing, all right? So you click the advanced settings, then you go to the next section, it'll go to the next tab. Josh, if you could scroll down. So schedule this reel. All you do is you click that and you choose the time and the date. And the one caveat is if you do schedule the reel, you can't post it to Facebook at the same, like you can't do because on Instagram you can just say when I post it to Facebook. So if you use Facebook, which I don't know why you are, but if you want the presence there, you can't schedule it. So just keep that in mind.
That's the way to go.
But you could always just post to Facebook separately later. But yeah, just a thing.
It's nice. I mean, we have scheduling. We used Later for a while, and we've also used Hootsuite back in the day, like third-party apps.
Mm-hmm.
But now to bring this into the app itself, that's a lovely thing to have. Lovely thing to see.
Also, shorts you can now schedule as well. You used to not be able to schedule shorts on YouTube, and you can now schedule those just like you would schedule a normal YouTube video, like a 16:9 longy, I guess you could call it. So yeah, just something interesting. I know Eon Lake's not the biggest fan of Instagram, but I'm curious if that changes your tune about posting on it, just hopping on, scheduling it, and getting off.
I think it's a good thing. I think breaking that dual posting potential is just stupid.
I agree.
Makes no sense. So
Yeah,
now
maybe that's something they'll
All
fix.
you've got to do is to log into every single app and create a post, and it's so great. I thought Hootsuite and the other apps like that was the right way to go. We got a single platform, you bring all your feeds into it, and you start posting stuff out to all of them. That for me is the holy grail.
The difference is you got to pay for that. This you don't.
Do you know what? If it means I don't have to go tram through every app, every platform,
It's worth it. All right, yeah.
my time is worth it. Yeah, if it's not too expensive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, people like Twitter are locking down the API for third-party access. So,
I didn't know that.
this stuff is dying on its ass. I think what people want is an easy life and a way of doing these things quickly and easily.
It's something
in
you
that
said.
regard, it's good. Yeah.
Like the idea of just investing a little bit of money in something to streamline a very dull, boring, but necessary, very necessary part of the game, so to speak.
Yeah, with the hope of one day making some music.
Yeah,
That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this. One of the lessons I've taken from January is that I'm probably not going to do January again because it's
that's a lesson. Yeah. All right.
It's not about the music. It's about the marketing. It's about putting things out consistently. It's about shooting videos, recording videos, which is a very necessary part. But I haven't been able to make much music. I mean, we'll talk about that in next week when we actually. Yeah. When I finish it completely, and I just say something a little less brash and offhand. But
yeah. I'm not completely sold on daily posting.
No, I think you're right there.
Optimum chunking is probably the answer, whatever that is.
I think
optimum chunking.
I think it's a fast track to burnout. So maybe it has short-term benefits, but I think long-term and even short-term, it doesn't always pay off. I mean, have you noticed much growth from doing daily? Because that's what they say. The reason to do daily posts is to grow, right? To get tons of exposure and tons of followers. I mean, I know you're doing it just for the January and the art. I'm just curious, as a side note, if you've seen what they say is true.
On YouTube, yes. I have seen growth on YouTube. Instagram, no. I haven't seen much growth on Instagram, but I've seen growth. I've been doing them as shorts on YouTube as well, and so I've seen growth through that. We'll talk about that next week I don't know when. Probably in marketing or round robin. We have to kind of talk about it, but
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, let's talk about AI.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's AI adjacent, I suppose. AI adjacent.
It's related to AI. Put it that way.
I want to just take you on a little story.
We're going on a journey. Friends are going on a journey.
So I was doom scrolling on Instagram one night. I think this was on Sunday night. I dreading going to work or something like that, and I just stumbled across.
Dreading going to work, so you doom scroll. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as you fall asleep, you have to start that life. Whereas
with existential dread.
Yeah.
That's Thursday. We'll see.
In the dark.
But yeah, so I saw this, and it took me on a bit of a point. This is a guy, I don't know who he is or anything. I don't know anything about it, but it's just what he's saying. So I'll play it, and then I'll tell you where I'm going with it. All right. So,
of course, AI can draw a beautiful picture like a real artist, but can AI move to Berlin and overdose? like a real artist?
Very short to the point.
Questions.
These are
The
deep
existential-
questions, I guess.
The existential burning questions that we all see it in the world, right? And it does tease a few. It teases at a few things, right? So
Explain yourself.
okay, I will explain myself. Okay, so on the first hand, you've got that debate: AI created art, and you've got human generated art, which is the big kind of debate at the moment, right? I've spent the last year of my life basically making AI music, and we've got things like Midjourney, and we've got Stable Diffusion now, and even Canva has got their own little AI generator.
Bazart. I don't know
Bazart,
if Canva does.
Okay, we've got lots of this coming to the mainstream. It's not going anywhere, and there's that whole debate about, can it be used? Is it the right thing to do? Yada yada yada. Which is not the debate necessarily for today. But what he was saying, what Dan the Stranger was saying, was the idea that an artist is not just about the art that it makes. It's also about the experiences which the artists go through in order to create that art. They come from somewhere. They lock into something, some kind of strife or pleasurable moment or whatever. But it's the experience, right? So the AI can manipulate that, can copy that, but it can never kind of produce those same emotions, produce those same feelings, because it's never actually gone through those feelings, never gone through those experiences. Artists that we revere or are influential, so to speak, so Kurt Cobain or Amy Winehouse, for example, to a degree, in the mainstream at the very least, sordid kind of personal lives struck with breakdowns in relationships and marriages and drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, which lead them to create create art in its own right. But also it gives the story for the artist a story for the listener, the consumer, however you want to call them, to latch onto. There's a story behind it, which ultimately, speaking of things like personal branding and through Spotify and things like that, is ever more important than we ever wanted to be. Are you with me, or am I the ramblings of a madman at this stage?
No, I'm
Can it be both?
You're not a rambling madman, of course, but know.
Well, to get to this stage, firstly, what I wanted to idea is the identification with one's own personal brand and what makes their own music stick out from everyone else's. Not better, not worse, not anything, just makes it you. I think is a very important thing to identify with. And I wanted to bring that to the table, and for you guys and for the people watching either live or watching back, to start that dialogue with yourself. What is the thing that sets your music apart? Like, I know what it is for me, and I can, if I listen to, say, a Sunwarper track, or if I listen to an Eon Lake track, or a Hydra Fighter track, or a Frequency Consultant, or a Survey Channel track, you know it's them. And it's easy to establish it on other people, but you have to understand it for yourself as well. So I was wondering if we could go around and just share our thoughts on that.
Okay. I will.
Would anyone like to go first? Shall I go first? I don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Curtis.
Okay. Well, mine's quite easy in the sense that I obviously all my tracks come under one canon. They come under one story, which are all linked throughout the albums and throughout the tracks, and they all are with this universe which is in my mind and which has been speaking to me over the last couple of years. Now, every release and every album is a step forward in that direction, both for myself and for the people listening. And that is, I mean, no one has written the stories that are inside my head. Curtis is me and Curtis is not me in both regards. So that's what kind of sticks me across. So there's that canon, that story that comes through. Like when Marooned releases, the next chapter in Curtis's story. And that's what separates, personally, that's what separates me from everyone else in that regard.
One's a few. Yeah. For me, what is it that makes me me? I like to think it's a set of aesthetics. I'm quite picky, and I always have been. Some of the music that I love has got things in it that I wouldn't have if it were mine. And that doesn't mean I want to go change it or anything, but I've always had taste, I don't mean taste as in I've got such good taste. I mean, I've had a taste in anything that I've ever heard, from somebody playing an instrument to recordings to all the rest of it. I've got an opinion on everything. There are certain types of reverbs that I don't like. There are certain types of sounds I don't like. I have synthesizers I love, but they make sounds that I don't necessarily like or use at times. Everything I have an opinion about. And also, it's everything that I've ever listened to and been inspired by and been moved by, or that has tied in with some sort of experience that I've had living my life. And so I like to think of what I do as being like the sum total of all of that. It's kind of like as me as I can make it, the kind of things that I like, the music that moved me, made me do this. It sounds like this because these are the sounds that I like. I treated it this way because that's the way I like to work. Do you know what I mean? Everything is personalized through the whole stage, from conception to it being done. Is like, keep running it through the Foxy machine, until it's done.
The Foxy machine. That should be your studio name. The Foxy machine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just, that's what I try and make it, all about me. And I think, there are some people that I'm aware of that got such a strong aesthetic themselves. It's something that I always like to see in other musicians. So yeah, it's something that I look for and something that I try and do. But I think there are a number of different things that actually define something that I would do. And if you hear more than a certain number of them, that's what makes it sound like me and not like someone else who maybe overlaps some of them.
We look forward to that when the Eon Lake releases in 2023. We'll just link back to ADSN 47 and just kind of track or sit the listening.
Verify whether that's accurate.
See them go through. It's interesting. Frequency control center. Art has to have thought and meaning and feeling. Otherwise, it's just colors on a screen or noises in a speaker. That is something that is very to the point. Very put through. Survey channel, a great point. I think it applies to us all. We are musical sensibilities and are experienced listening. Curate our aesthetic, having a larger catalog, a varied palette, and it can only improve.
He says improve our output.
You should know.
Yeah, improve our output. Yeah. I'll leave the commenting to Sunwarper because he can read better than me.
Yeah, you tried to jump in and you failed. But I'll carry the reins. Don't worry, I got it covered. No, before I say my piece though, I know the old SP404 used to have a lo-fi button. I hope the next one has a Foxy button that I can hit and just sound like Eon Lake, because I just always have that one clicked on. Also, just for the name itself, But yeah,
it's a Valhalla algorithm.
Yeah, there we go. It's the spring 2022 update will be on Valhalla will be Foxy verb. So let's see. I don't know, man. Like you said, it's a struggle for me. I mean, a lot of what Eon Lake said though is what I was partially going to say. Like, what makes music is the creator's experience, like life experience, musical experiences, all of that, and they're putting it together and creating something from that. Like we even said, I'm blanking again, but the good artists borrow, great artists steal. I mean, it's that same thing. Your experiences, steal may be the wrong word, but you're taking all those experiences, and not just when I say experiences, I don't mean like you experience this in life, but like those chords you heard, those intervals you've heard, like I said before, even subconsciously, you're recording that in your brain, whatever, and you're gonna find ways to work those in, even subconsciously. When you play a note or a chord, you're gonna be like, oh, maybe this one works, and most likely that's because you had probably heard it before and it was just like right deep there. I mean, that's kind of what I feel like when you listen to sampling artists, like artists who work with samples. It sounds like them, despite them always pulling all of their music is from other artists, because they're creating new chord relationships and things like that from these sounds and putting different songs together and making it. So I think that's what makes it. I mean, for me personally, like I love to put analog sounds with digital sounds and add guitars, and I like to kind of play with the idea of like quantizing certain things like drums or something and using unquantized guitars to give this like weird relationship. So I don't know if that defines me. And yeah, Survey Channel says there's two ways to talk about it, technically and I guess aesthetically, definitely. And I mean, this is kind of off note, but it relates to that video. I don't necessarily think the usage of AI is like non-defining. Like I feel like because you're giving it the prompts and things like that, it can still be worked into your own experiences and aesthetics. And like the way I think of it, like I can't use Photoshop, but I can give the idea in my head as a prompt and create something from it.
Like generative music. Yeah,
exactly.
Framework or a set of rules or boundaries.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think... I mean, of course, there's like ethical things with some of those AI things and stuff like that, but I don't think just like using an AI to create album artwork is inherently wrong. Like it can be defined by you because you're giving it the prompt to do something, and it's within your art's aesthetic. Like there's a reason it exists. So, yeah. Bendu says, in my case... attempt to emulate something, fail. If I still like it, then it equals Bendu.
With that in mind, Maroon's coming out in March. I'm going up blue. That's one big catastrophic failure. But I think just to add to what you're saying and that kind of the idea of experience with something, like I was listening to it on the tram into work this morning. I was late to the party. The Elizabeth Crompton album on Where a Fox.
Yeah.
Now that is, I think someone said it on there. Hauntingly beautiful or something along those lines, where it's pain and misery with beautiful synthesizers. It's absolutely, she's just laid her heart out onto the desk, and it's beautiful, it's stunning, it's wonderful, and that couldn't be recreated by AI, because those emotions, those periods of her life that she's gone through, I don't know her. I've never met her before, and I don't know anything about her. I just listened to it on Bandcamp this morning, but I feel like I've been through chapters of her life, and that is, I don't feel like that can be recreated. Those experiences that we go through, just to really kind of hammer that nail home. That's what kind of defines what we do, and so yeah.
Well, here's a question. I think you're right, but I do have a question, and it ties into...
Always the devil's advocate.
Exactly. What I was trying to formulate, and Bendu said it perfectly, he said, AI is a tool, you still need an artist. So, here's an idea. What if you make a piano riff with an AI, and then you sample it, chop it up, and make something from it?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean...
raw material, then.
Hybridity is the way forward, no?
Yeah, I mean,
as long as I don't have to pay the AI.
yeah, the royalties.
This is where it comes down to, really. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Sync opportunities to AI because it's easier than working with a musician.
Well, I mean, I noticed, like I said, I worked in AI a lot last year, and the clarity and the tonality and the humanness, I suppose, of when we got studio musicians in versus when my AI was generating stuff, like you can still see it plainly. And obviously AI is going to get better and better and better, and it's going to keep on going. But something about the human touch and the human, maybe it's because we're human and we can empathize. I don't know, but it's always there for now.
Yeah, over in the chat, Maureen's friend said, this beer food guy I follow, Augie Carton, says the same thing. Try to copy something you like, and all of the differences you get at the end equals your art. And then Survey Channel says he's got a song that he's working on from time to time that is exactly that, what I was saying about, like, make something on the AI, chop it up, sample it, and all that. Yeah, I mean, I've been working with a lot of samples lately, and then for my February project, a project that's starting in February, I've been working with AI for the artwork. I'm doing, like, a monthly release thing where it's, like, going to different places and things like that, and it's using the prompts. So it's called, like, Music for Imagined Landscapes, so that's, like, the whole point. But I'm using it within the art's aesthetic and, like, creating from it. So it's artwork, not music, but it's kind of the same thing. Like, I'm taking what it is and creating something from it. So yeah, that it's just like AI is so interesting, and I've been seeing videos about like how to use AI as a YouTuber or as a this or as a that, and it's like they all come down to saying though, like, it's still, you have to edit it, it's still a tool, you know, like if you're writing scripts with, what is it, Chat GPT or something, like you have to edit it. And there's one video game reviewer I watch who makes these joke review videos where he has Chat GPT write, I think it's Chat GPT, but write the full review, and he just reads it. and it's just like insane ramblings that have some coherence in random parts. It's really funny, but yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't be wrong in thinking it was just Curtis speaking those reviews.
I don't do podcasts yet, and it's like, well, I can do a third of a podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, like you say, it's all the same. You have to chop it up and edit it and stuff. And I think we're still in that stage, which is a very interesting place to be. I was playing with ChatGPT today, and it got a very accurate representation of what Audionautic is, having
crazy.
known nothing about us.
Yeah, he put what is Audionautic, and it was like, it travels. What was it? Teaches music or something like that. And it was like, I inferred this because audio. They're talking about audio, and then nautic is space or travel, so they're traveling through music. Oh, that's crazy.
If anyone's interested, I'll put it in the Discord after the show.
Yeah, and if you want to head to the Discord, the link is in the description to join.
Yes, very much so. We we'll be hanging out there, and I'll put it up there so everyone can see. But yes, any more on AI music / generative art or anything like that?
Just Survey Channel in the chat said, I've seen some amazing videos. Metal Gear Solid as an 80s action movie. Bloodborne as an 80s dark fantasy horror, whatever. They use Mid-Journey to conjure up the visuals. Yeah, I have a video coming out tomorrow on my channel that it's not like fully fleshed out, but I made, using that Saga synth, I made like a 16-bit video game console soundtrack. And so I wanted some cool visuals to like put in with my performance. So I made some Sega Genesis levels from like Mid-Journey or Stable Diffusion and like have it pop in. So it's kind of that idea. It's pretty cool, those like things, because like I can't make in Blender or something like this pixelated level, but I can have the AI make what I was thinking, and then there it is. So yeah,
it's a good world when AI can be used as a tool in that way.
Yeah, it's a bit like a DAW.
Yeah, or sampling, anything like that, you know.
I genuinely thought you meant DOOR, DOOR, and we had to walk through it into oblivion. That's what I thought, genuinely. And then I was like, oh no, we're producers. Yeah, we use DOW.
Oh, that's right. Unless you're DAW-less.
Unless you are.
But hopefully you're not doorless.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's everything coming out from Survey Channel. Looking forward to seeing that. Anything that Sunwarper is coming out with in this coming year, it's going to be good fun.
It's a trip, but thank you.
Yeah, it is quite a trip. It's quite a trip. So yeah, that's about all I've got to say before I fall asleep.
Yeah, it's nighttime for you. I'm about to have lunch, so I was like, I'm in like a food lull. I need food.
So just working off the coffee.
Just one this morning.
Oh, good boy. What a good boy.
I've been having just one for like 2 months. I'll have like a B vitamin thing or something in the afternoon. There you go. That's my workaround.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure as always. Yep. And people in the chat, thank you ever so much. Really quick,
we've got one more thing in the chat. Thomas came in. He said AI will become better and better until one day it will be pretty much indistinguishable from music made by humans. What the AI will need is some kind of input guidance. I'm not sure. I feel like it'll get equal. I think like Curtis was saying, it was always missed that sort of like human element. But I mean, I think it will get better and better. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I do think it will always need guidance. Say again, Ian, like?
I think it would be more obvious in some music than others, perhaps.
Probably, yeah. Maybe what's that trap? The chip trap?
Chip trap.
Yeah, maybe AI can make chip trap, chip tune and trap combined.
I know. Will it have the heart and soul of the real core chip trap, though? Well, only time will tell.
Oh, suddenly trap is dividing the human race. It's to bring people together.
Yeah.
Thank you again, gents, and thank you to everyone in the chat. It's lovely to hear your thoughts. It's been great to hear what you guys are up to and kind of what you think about this, because we bring this to the table, but really it's for you guys. So thank you ever so much.
And if you're looking for some non-AI human curated music, check out our Audionautic Radio playlist. The link is in the description. And if you want to help spread the word, retweet or tweet about the podcast, you can also give a rating over on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I keep wanting to say iTunes, but that's so old-fashioned, I guess. But yeah, we're up there. The links are in the description as well. So if you want to help us out, would mean a lot. But yeah, until next week, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah. We'll see you next week. Hang on, it's the last one of January, isn't it? It is.
Yeah, we're almost at a year. What is this, 47? 52, right?
This is 47.
Yeah,
We've got to get to 52.
Yeah.
We got some interesting things coming up in February in terms of we're doing our own little experimentation with YouTube Shorts, and that's going to be an ongoing thing throughout February. So we'll talk about more about that next week. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to do, as well as more shenanigans, as always.
Always the shenanigans, yeah.
Always the
Jan, like anything, any final words for today?
Patrons, thanks to everyone in the chat.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.